There's some low-hanging fruit that if we just like turn some dials, flip some switches, and change a few things about your gameplay, I think that we can actually see like very easily double-digit percentage improvements in your damage output. I don't think it's that
I
good.
appreciate that. That's really nice of you. So we'll see how this goes. I usually play tank and support, just whatever I guess the game puts me on. But I would say that I am way more comfortable on support because I came from PS4 actually. So my PS4 support I feel a lot more confident on than I do, I guess, on tank or anything. Yeah. So it is 5. We have a 5 stack here. Don't Eat Me is the random one. So we'll see how.
Wait, you're playing with a 5 stack as a solo?
No, I'm playing with the 5 stack, and then we have a random solo.
Oh, okay. Oh,
sorry.
Like, wow, what a VOD to spin. Yeah. And sorry, I just joined. Did you already ask Lou if you regularly play with 5 stack?
Yeah, so this group of 5 is what we actually last week I think you guys reviewed Mad Scientist, but I wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I recognize the name.
So it's usually the 5 stack is us on the on team 1, and Don't Eat Me is the random one. So we have been playing together for years, but we started on PS4 and we recently migrated to PC. So it's kind of it's been a little bit of a hot mess, but it's okay. We really just enjoy playing with each other 70% of the time.
How long have you been playing on PC?
Me personally, since September, October. I was actually it took me a really long time to get comfortable playing with mouse and keyboard because I never played PC before. So I realized when I was playing Ana comparatively to controller, it was so much different. And it took me so long to
I mean, it's brand new movement. It's brand new muscle memory you need to build. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, it's still taking time. It's still which is kind of sad because I'm not at the same place I was when I was on my same rank, but because I was a plat support, even though it's not that high, but here I just got to gold. So it's just the skill ceiling I still need to reach, but
for sure. So this is a gold level VOD we're looking at, or
yeah, this is a gold level VOD. My tank is 2100 right now, so.
I'm gonna ask a little bit of a rude question. Are you nervous at all right now?
I am a little nervous. That's just my personality as a whole. I am a quite anxious person.
All right. Is there anything specific that's making you nervous about this VOD, or is it Lou and I? Is it the audience or? No,
there is one thing I am worried about is that this VOD. So I was bringing this up actually to that group of people the other day. Was I'm not sure. I was debating between 2 different VODs. There was one where where I didn't play with this 5 stack and I played Ana instead. But in this one I played tank. But the whole reason I mentioned that is because I wanted to do, I think, a tank VOD. And this game, we kind of get rolled by the 6 stack that we played with the game right before this.
Oh, okay.
So, I don't know. I think there's a couple good fights in here, but we'll see.
So you're nervous about the quality of the VOD?
A little bit, but I'm also just generally a nervous person.
Okay. If there's anything that I can do to make you more comfortable, less nervous, less anxious, let me know. I want to try and make sure that you get as much out of this and that you feel welcome to ask any questions or anything like that. I know what it's like I've worked with anxious people before. It's not uncommon. A lot of people have a lot of anxiety just based around ranked as well. But yeah, we're here to help. And so if you do, don't be worried about the quality of the VOD. It will, regardless of the quality of VOD, there's going to be more than enough things that we'll be able to talk about. So I'm sure the VOD is great. And yeah, if there's if there's anything that you can do to get it out of your system, then let me know.
I'll just go scream into a pillow for a while.
You know what? Do the whole jump and scream, jump and scream. I mean, I have my own little ritual that I do literally every time before I go live to get rid of anxiety. So
that's good. What do you do?
I do the jump and scream. I demonstrated it once, but yeah, it's just I jump as high as I can, I land in a deep squat, and then I scream at the top of my lungs. And that's what I do to get rid of my anxiety. So, I mean, if you scream into a pillow, scream into a pillow. But
Well,
I feel like I would pass out if I did that.
yeah, just as you keep screaming, all the oxygen leaving your body.
yeah,
I
just
totally
never
feel it.
stop screaming. Just never
Yeah.
stop screaming.
Oh yeah, I totally feel that.
Okay. Well,
I do appreciate though you bringing it up.
Yeah, I can just hear it in people's voices sometimes. So you know,
I apologize.
don't
for
no
that.
no
That's
no.
all
It's
good.
nothing to
We're here for you.
apologize. We are here for you, absolutely. And it can be a bit strange to do these things live. So, all right. Well, yeah. All right. Let's get into it.
So is Zarya one of the main tanks you play? Not
Yeah,
that
it's
she's a main
the-
tank, but one of your main heroes, sorry.
Yeah, the two tanks that I do try to play is I do try to play Zarya. I'm trying to get better at her, and then I usually play Rein. Because that's just you usually need the shield, and that's the shield I'm most comfortable on.
Fair enough. I will say, you guys are playing a very meta composition for... You said this was a gold game?
Yeah.
Ooh, I love these long range right clicks. That Zenyatta is super low.
The one thing that I think a huge issue I do have on Zarya is that it takes me so long to get ult. Like I keep, maybe because my aim's terrible, but it does take me a while to build ult.
So yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that because I really do like the fact that you're right clicking. Like we were watching a Zarya VOD earlier today, somebody who almost never utilized right click, and you're doing it a lot in these interfight periods. And like you've chunked down the Zenyatta pretty low, and you've chunked down the Ana pretty low as well. And they've both gotten to points where they are either killable or like you would just put them to absolute, something like that. So it's really good that you are right clicking as much as you are. The one thing that I think is that you've gotten it into your mind to right click in the general direction of the opponent, which is what's getting these kind of initial bursts of damage on the targets that do encounter this right click. But it doesn't look like the right clicks are intentional. So just in like the first kind of 40 seconds of this, you've been right clicking in the general direction of the opponent, but not specifically aiming these right clicks. And right clicks are one of those things where they're a little bit wonky to get used to, because right clicks actually have a little bit of a vertical travel on them, so they go up for a little bit before they go down. They go down. They don't immediately drop. So you do have to get a little bit used to them. But yeah, there's whether it's getting these big chunky right clicks into groups of people, getting it onto individuals who are staying on high grounds or backlines. You know, those right clicks are definitely going to help you speed things up. And if you are focusing on the right clicks but missing over kind of like doing big, hefty damage to tanks or something like that, your ultimate charge is going to be pretty slow. But even then, Zarya is already one of the the longest charging ults in the game. People just get really fast because she also has really high potential for damage. But yeah, at this point, I would just say that probably like the intentionality of the right clicks is the main thing. But the fact that you are doing them in the first place already is really good.
Yeah, you get your first step done.
Yeah, like the fact that you lead off that like right click to get that burst in and then start left clicking him, like I love it already.
Thank you.
Ooh, almost got the bubble on it.
Almost.
So, when you're looking for these bubble engages with your Rein, I'm going to talk a little bit about team play since you are in a 5-stack. It seems like we're kind of just defaulting to bubble swings ad nauseum. We're not really committing on times we could be committing, and we're not kiting back in times we need to be kiting back. So for example, in that fight earlier, we got their Rein really low, and we could have killed him with like one more swing, I'm pretty sure, but we still fell back, even though we were in a position where we couldn't stabilize because we had lost too many people. Similarly, when their Doomfist was engaging in, we were still just bubbling Rein to swing. We were still just looking for our sort of default play of getting Zarya energy, getting some Reinhardt swings in. We weren't really adapting to the way the team fight was unfolding. And I'd like to see both you and the Reinhardt sort of react to that kind of situation differently, where if you're getting pressured, you need to decide whether you need to peel back for your team a little bit, or if you find an advantage, you need to decide to commit even harder than you usually do. Versus someone like a Doomfist especially too, we should be ready for those fast tempo engage plays they're going to be looking for. So yeah, kind of same thing here. We're kind of just defaulting to using both our bubbles. If their Doomfist found value there, we wouldn't have anything to react with. We're still postured really aggressively. Does that all make sense?
Yeah. It does
Okay.
make sense. Yeah.
It's definitely good to play into our win condition and what we want to be doing as a team, but we still need to respect their sort of engaged potential. And Doomfist exemplifies this better than any other hero, where he can just punch in and sometimes someone dies. So we got to be ready for that potential.
Oh yeah. That's definitely how the last game went with these exact same people.
So one of the other things that I'm going to add on to is that I really like the fact that you're right-clicking, but now seeing it for a little bit longer, you actually right-click too much, or at least you're too committed to the right-clicking overall. Because like right-clicking has its internal cooldown where you right-click and then it's got that delay before you right-click again. But you can actually left-click for a period of time during that. And this is one of the things that's going to be pretty much all Zarya players. I think I'm actually going to jump into a custom to demonstrate this, or at least a training range. So with the Zarya, where are we at? So with Zarya, like you can right click, left click, right click, left click, right click, and you can get that little bit of left click damage in there. And especially when you're doing this sort of thing, you can do a right click at 1 HP, or sorry, 1 ammunition, and it still will fire off a full burst of damage. So if you're doing this right, not only are you going to have a higher actual damage over time, in the fact that like, you know, if you're dealing a certain amount of damage from just throwing out your right clicks, you're going to be able to increase that that damage by weaving those left clicks in between those right clicks, and then theoretically you could use the equivalent of like 124 ammunition instead of your base 100 by kind of getting that phantom or extra ammunition by right-clicking at a really, really low value. So you can have a higher damage over time as well as reload more often as a way to increase your damage output. So whether you're doing that as at the start of a fight or just doing it as a kind of, you know, trying to... Yeah, there's going to be different situations, which pattern of right-clicks that you do. But your highest kind of damage over time is going to be right-clicking, left-clicking, alternating. So
this is really good for a lot of different situations. Definitely something that should be learned. Like, this is really good in duels to make sure you get the burst damage of the right click in while still being able to track a single target, as well as just like right clicking a backline and then switching over to pressure Rhine shield or deal damage to a tank in your face at the same time. Really good to weave that extra damage in.
And then the final kind of technique that I'll talk about on Zarya is, of course, the right click melee. So it's 95 HP for a full energy right click, but then the melee is going to be an extra 30 damage. So as soon as somebody's at 125 HP, you can finish them off. So there's going to be a lot of situations where if you're fighting a squishy, basically the two ranges that you want to be fighting a squishy at is going to be your max range to like just tickle them because it's going to make the tracking on them the easiest, and the other range that you want to be fighting at somebody is right basically at melee range. So that's going to be what's going to make it easiest for you to actually get eliminations. This kind of like a middling range where you're doing these right clicks is you know, suboptimal compared to just being able to finish them off with the melee right click. So, but yeah, even if you are at range, you can kind of go for those right clicks to bounce them up because it'll make them easier to track. So that's kind of 3 quick Zarya techniques, I suppose. There was another thing I wanted to show in training range while I was here. No, there wasn't. I was going to show on the in the replay where this might have been effective. We were looking at King's Row, right?
Mm-hmm. Now entering ready.
So we were at... It was on the retake. So a situation where this could have applied. was when you forced the trance, which was really good. But we'll just talk about the technique here, right? So. So you see the Zenyatta, he's on the point as well as the Ana right here, right? So this first right click, this is fantastic, right? You're gonna knock them both up. This Ana, this arc, you can see this Ana going into, makes it super easy to track her, and then you can launch the other right click as they're headed to the ground, right? But if you are gonna be going on to the Zenyatta instead, I would still continue to left click him while I was walking forward to get into range to actually do the right click melee here. Now you're at low energy, but that's just kind of like, you know, if you were going into this fight, then like if you had used your bubbles differently, you would have been at higher energy, probably around the 80 mark. But your two options, basically right clicking, that you saw that beautiful arc that Ana was going into, either left click and then just right click her from range to tickle her off if she didn't get killed. But with the higher HP of the Zenyatta, if you are going to really want to commit to things and make sure that that right click lands, does full damage, not splash damage, you know, it's going to be best to kind of walk in with the left click and then right click melee to finish the Zenyatta off. So those are kind of like the two tactical options you have to get eliminations here. And with that, you could potentially surprise the Zenyatta with that amount of damage and prevent him from using trance, which you know, in this situation would have gotten you eliminate, or you would have gotten the... Anyway, I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to ignore what I was just about to start explaining because it's relevant.
Yeah, he was so close.
Yeah.
He wasn't expecting burst damage. He was just waiting for you to overcommit on him.
Yeah,
but...
so it's just, this situation is weird because him using ultimate here is actually to your benefit, right? So you...
Yeah.
Because he made a mistake, you playing properly would have prevented him from making that mistake. So that's why I want you to like ignore the context of the situation. Him fucking up does not mean that you couldn't have done that better. But
that's good to know.
Yeah. So like, you know, if he was a higher rank Zenyatta, he'd been like, kill me if you must. I've done what I needed to do. He would have just taken the L, respawned, but because it was a gold Zenyatta, he decided to pop trance. And if you, in almost any other situation, it would have been better to approach that with the right tactical decision to get the elimination.
Hey there.
Echo here. Just like in training.
How are you feeling? Any thoughts?
No, I have been writing down things that you've been saying, so.
All right, just want to make sure you haven't frozen on me.
As we say too, these will always stay up on Jayne's channel as VODs if you ever need to rewatch them. In case we overload you too much.
Oh, absolutely. These 5 people are gonna make fun of me later, so.
Oh, no. Yeah. So one of the other things I'll just point out, I haven't seen it, but it's something that I like to point out regardless, is that in these kind of fights, you are really, really good at shield break. You've got a BAP who's going to be helping with the shield break. The Ana can help with and should be helping with shield break if she doesn't have to be doing anything else. And you've got an Echo who is amazing at shield break. So you've got a lot of shield break in your composition right now. So one of the things that you'll want to be doing is just like hard left clicking their shield quite a bit. Now, if there's Zarya bubbles their Reinhardt for that engage sort of thing, instead of stopping to shoot the Zarya, shoot the corner of the Reinhardt shield if he is shielding. So, yeah, you don't have to stop, right? Like right here, you stopped firing when the Zarya bubbled. So just you can shoot the edges of the shield and still be chunking that shield down and getting value during the Zarya bubbles. So when you do see that Zarya bubble come up, don't stop shooting, just move what you're shooting to the edge of the shield.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So then what is the best way to, would always using right click be the best way to destroy a shield, or should I be alternating like between the two?
Yeah, so it's going to be like...
Pure left click is actually the highest DPS.
So if you're going for like pure like highest damage, it's going to be the left click and then right clicking at 1 ammunition. But then if you're actually looking for that kind of like burst or potential to get kills onto groups of people, that right click, right click alternate is going to be really good because it's going to be farther range, going to surprise people with the damage. So
okay.
Yeah.
The general rule is like for pure damage and for single target focus, whether that's a shield or a hero, left click all the way. And then as Jayne's saying, like use your ammo to its most efficiency by right clicking with less than 25 ammo. But if you're looking for spam to build ultimate or to poke grouped up members or even to follow up like something like a grab or a shatter, then right click can be more AoE damage, obviously,
Yeah.
and help you isolate targets that can then be burned down by finishing them off with a left click.
That's a much better way of explaining it. Thanks.
It's not quite as simple as single target versus AoE, but yeah, for something like shield, left click is definitely the best.
Yeah, like, you know, one of the big things is that if you land like a big juicy right click on a target, especially a longer range target, like a Zenyatta or an Ana, that just landing that can force them to play differently. We were talking in our previous VOD about how a support player didn't heal themselves up, so they had to play kind of suboptimally for a long duration of time. Where just landing on right click, even if you don't get an elimination, it can either force them to play suboptimally in risk of getting eliminated, or take them out of the fight for a couple seconds while they get safe enough to re-engage. So yeah, it can be range, it can be AoE, it can be burst. But yeah, it's for single target damage. If it's like just a D.Va, just a Reinhardt, just a shield, just a turret, whatever it is, if it's a single target, just a left click, right click at one ammunition. Ooh, nice grab.
Unfortunately, and I hate to be nitpicky, if we had bubbles up during that grav, I think we kill everyone.
Yep.
If we had waited the 2 seconds for our allied bubble up so that we could bubble our Ryan and let him swing, he tried to swing anyway, but it ended up killing him.
Yeah. There's
but having bubble there, and then also bubble for yourself to like walk into the grav, right click melee, all 5 people or however many were in it, can be the difference maker for following up a grav.
Yeah, so like right clicking melee, both of those are actually AoE. You can hit multiple people with your melee.
Yeah.
So if there is a grav, you can just like walk directly into it, as well as bubbling yourself. Bubbling yourself will cut off the heal, and then right click melee once or twice, and everybody in it should die, especially the squishies. The other ways that go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, one Rhine swing plus like a right click melee from a high charge Zarya will kill 200 HP heroes.
And they just go pop. So
they pop, yeah.
Yeah. The other ways that you could have won this, you know, I think this is a little bit too low of an elo to care too much about ult tracking, but you can block shatter with your personal bubble, or projected. Bubbles can block shatter. And then additionally, the shield was really low. So Echo was working on the shield, and if you had been left clicking that shield, it would have been broken early enough for the Reinhardt to drop as well. So it was like, the intention was good, the execution was just barely not there, but it was a good one.
The grav was huge. And it's funny you mentioned you felt you had trouble building grav. You built that grav in like 2 minutes.
It takes me a while. It usually doesn't take that long. It's because the whole reason I know it's an issue is because I always comment on it, and it's something I'm very aware of, where it takes me either 2.5 minutes,
Yeah.
sometimes it takes 3 minutes. It just depends on the day or how the fight's going, as things usually do.
Yeah.
So it's just something, one of my friends on the team, he can build grab very, very quickly. So it's just sort of figuring out how to do that, better way to do that. So that's just why I
it's
asked.
not something. I think that one of the things that I think people get kind of stuck on is that building grab faster isn't necessarily a goal that you can focus on. Building grab faster is going to be a side effect of picking a specific playstyle or performing that playstyle quite well. Where if you are if you're specifically playing Zarya just to build grab, for example, you're going to play on off angles a lot more. You're going to even play on high grounds. You're going to be right-clicking into the backline instead of doing any shield break damage at all, because shield break damage doesn't build your grab faster. But there are going to be situations where, in order to be winning team fights, you need to be doing some shield damage, breaking their Reinhardt shield before your shield breaks. So, if you're optimizing for just building grav as fast as possible, it's pretty likely that you're going to be losing in the neutral, because you're sacrificing some things that just don't make sense in order to build that a little bit faster. Just mindlessly trying to improve your grav charge rate isn't going to help. Not in the long term sort of thing. So I think that it'd be good to view it as kind of like a way of, if you focus on accuracy of right clicks will have a side effect of building your charge faster. Making sure that you can break the Reinhardt shield faster, so that you can actually put damage onto the Reinhardt instead of the shield. That's going to have an effect of building your ult faster. And there's going to be some playstyles that are more defensive. You know, if you're saving the projected bubble for a backline dive, you know, it's like if they've got a Winston Doomfist who's going after your Ana, and you know you're spending a lot more time in the neutral, not at high energy, because you always have that projected to save your Ana. You know, your ultimate charge rate is going to be lower, but you're going to be winning more team fights. So I would focus on kind of like picking a playstyle and then getting good at that playstyle, and especially increasing your lethality and your damage output will just have the added side effect of increasing your grav charge rate, rather than having that be the focus of your improvement.
Okay, that makes sense.
Got anything, Lou?
No. I think you covered most of it. In general, like you said, you don't want to measure yourself just on your ability to build ultimates. There's a lot of other things that go into playing Overwatch.
It's basically like a half step away from I've got gold medals, what is my team doing?
Yeah. I built 3 grabs, why didn't we win? Yeah, it's not all about the ultimates.
This is great. Oh, Joe, you just zoned yourself by the anyway. The fact that you turned around to look for that was good. I mean, I am almost positive that just with it, like, so you're one of my favorite types of students, because you're playing in such a way that we could very easily make some tiny adjustments that could increase your damage output by probably like 50%. We've got some like low-hanging fruit things here. You've got good awareness, you've got a lot of good team play stuff coming on here, but there's some low-hanging fruit that if we just like turn some dials, flip some switches, and change a few things about your gameplay, I think that we can actually see like very easily double-digit percentage improvements in your damage output. I don't think it's that
I
good.
appreciate that. That's really nice of you.
So the other students we've worked with today, you know, both of them had things that they had to work on long term. You get to see immediate improvements.
I appreciate that. The Asian in me wants an A though.
I guess there's a small thing here. Since we did lose our Reinhardt that early, you staying alive as Zarya with as much charge as possible can be the difference maker in these sort of like extended or staggered fights. And maybe playing a little bit safer as soon as your Rein went down, like even backing up to where your Widow was playing when she got doom ulted, would have kept you alive at the very least, helped you continue building ultimate, helped you keep your charge for the fight coming in next. Not saying it would have won you the team fight, there was still a lot coming through, but it would have helped you stabilize. And this is more important on Zarya than any other hero because of your charge mechanic.
Yeah.
I think all we had to do was really stop this snowball. And we had an opportunity with that grav play on second point, where if we had even just waited 2 seconds and gotten those bubbles and won a team fight off that grav, I think we could have like held a lot more time at the very least, if not full held them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of this has been snowballing.
Mm-hmm.
From a team perspective, I could say some things, but again, it plays mainly into that idea of not just defaulting into bubble Rein, swing, self-bubble, walk in front of Rein every time. That's a good neutral mindset to have, but when they have better engage potential, in this case they have a Doomfist, or when they have ultimates to use, playing default like that can sometimes get you punished.
Yeah, that's really good to know because that's definitely my default.
It's every Rein Zarya's default. It's not just you, and what you're doing is really good, and it's building you a ton of ult charge, it's building you a ton of energy, but if you do it too often, you become too predictable, and then they say, hey look, Zarya used both bubbles, I'm gonna go punch their backline.
Yeah, that's definitely good to know.
Oh, what's this Doom gonna do?
Actually, I'm gonna nitpick.
Oh boy.
I mean, I'll take it.
So like it's very rarely that you want to just use your bubble for like generic charge here, but this is a great example, right? There's a fire strike here. This should definitely be a personal bubble. It's free, and otherwise the Reinhardt gets our shatter charge. So at these front of the doors, like, you know, if there is a Junkrat mine, if they are fire striking it, like, you should be getting bubble because you can wait the time for it to come back up before the fight. This isn't a situation where if you use it here, you're not going to have it for the team fight. Use it here, and then if you have 2 or 3 seconds more on the cooldown by the time you need, just wait the 2 or 3 seconds and before your bubbles come back up to re-engage. Because then you're going to be starting with just, by default, more energy than the enemy Zarya, because she won't have caught a fire strike early on. The other thing here is that, so this is where, like, I'm seeing in your gameplay that you've got it into your default. You should always be right-clicking, right? But what are you right-clicking?
Maybe there's a Sombra there, Jayne. You don't know.
Maybe! True, it's not even 15 seconds yet. 7 seconds could be a Sombra. But, so, this is going to be a sort of thing where Zarya's right-click is huge, and it's one of the projectiles that ignores skyboxes, right? So you could actually be yeeting it over this wall at an extremely high vertical angle to be getting it onto the point. So, and this is something like Ana's need to know how to do this. Zarya's need to know how to do this. You know, I'm actually pretty happy with how good I am at it these days, where it's like, you just be like, it's about there. You throw something at like an 80-degree angle and it actually hits something. And it's like, even if you miss 9 times out of 10, it's going to hit one of those 10. It's going to really fucking piss somebody off. Because, you know, it's like, what happens if you hit an Ana with a max charge right click that you fired at an 80-degree incline and the Ana has to self-nade with that? I mean, if it only works 10% of the time, that is still incredible value for a 10% success rate. So,
yeah,
plus
and like
feel really
worst case scenario, you have to reload.
Oh no. Right? So it's like, even if you do like tiny angles, like, it's an arcing projectile, right? Even if you do tiny angles over the fence to start hitting the Rhine shield, or do vertical angles to try and get splash, always be right clicking. Great suggestion. Always be right clicking something though. I'm nitpicking. I'm gonna be that guy. So I thought I only saw it a couple times here, but so it 25 HP. You reload at 25 HP, and then
25 ammo.
Yes, words are hard. And then you reload at 50 ammo as well. All right, so this is what I'm talking about. Like, there's so many kind of like little things that we can do to increase, like, you know, the right click, left click weaving. Left click single targets and shields, finishing off with right click, and then just not reloading this often. You should really, like, you know, one of the ways, especially with Zarya, where you can actually get some phantom ammo, and you up to 124. You know, this, you've reloaded twice, where you've essentially left 25 ammo and 50 ammo on the floor, and that's ammo that you could have been using in order to get more damage out, either onto the Rhine or onto the shield or things like that. So not only just you know, increasing the amount of damage that you do with the ammo that you do have, but reloading less frequently because you're actually using it is going to be really important. Reloaded at 30 ammunition.
Yeah, at the bare minimum too, you shouldn't be reloading at the time you're using bubbles to walk up. You want as much pressure going out during that window as possible so that you actually get the most value out of it. You generate the most threat, you generate the most energy for your charge, and you do the most damage.
That was good. Right click.
Ooh. Oh, get him.
Get up!
Oh, get him.
Oh, come on!
Oh, she's in low.
You're right with me.
Very close.
Yeah.
That's the kind of situation where, like, hitting a right click and then trying to predict the bounce arc and tracking with your left click could have netted you a kill.
Ooh. Yeah.
And I think this was a case of using bubbles too early, again, playing a little bit default, not reacting to their re-aggression once your mercy went down, where we need to be a little more conservative with our bubbles there to keep ourselves alive, not just generate energy.
Alright, let's see this grab.
I'm ready for it.
I don't know if it's as inspirational as you guys think it is.
Ooh.
Oh!
Who needs a grab?
Who needs a grab?
Only
Yeah,
thing I was gonna
that's
say is, when you heard your McCree pop high noon there, grabbing them around that corner so they couldn't retreat could have been good, but turns out it wasn't needed after all. So now we got grab still.
Yeah, so on long-range targets, you're consistently right-clicking too high. You can actually aim a lot lower on these right-clicks. Because even if you miss them, like, directly on, you want it to land on their feet. You're not trying to aim for head or center of mass with right-clicks, you're trying to hit their feet. That Mercy really going to take the 1v1? Oh, no!
Oh! It's no longer a 1v1. So again, it really feels to me like we're waiting for an excuse to go aggressive instead of forcing the situation when we have advantage, or we have priority positioning, or we have ultimates like grab. And I didn't have a precise window where I would have liked to see the grab, but I would have liked to see you positioning yourself to be more aggressive because you had grab kind of thing. Not just waiting for them to come in, waiting to bubble Rhine to get energy like we normally do. And again, I'm working on this a lot, but it's one of Zarya's, like, it's her ultimate, right? It's what she can play around really aggressively, and similar with your bubbles, you need to be using them more or less aggressively for what the situation calls for.
Okay.
I really liked the counter grab. I'm not sure what Lou thinks, but I really liked it.
I like the fact that you did it after the lamp came out. So one, they're blading. Oh, he dashed into the wall. We saw them force lamp. We see lamp is in a killable position. We grab them behind to keep lamp in a killable position, I think. Oh no, we pulled the shield in front. Never mind. But yeah,
also got the Genji in it.
They've showed their hand. They've committed basically everything, other than Shatter, I suppose, to this play to make it work. And then you've taken the wind out of their sails by counter grabbing there. Their Genji, unluckily, got the kill on your Reinhardt because he stayed a little bit too close, and we didn't have a bubble to let him swing into the grab. But even if we just grabbed to survive there, we could then turn the tempo after the fact, because they used everything.
Yeah, I think that like the reason your team lost there was like impatience, not tracking the enemy Reinhardt, but also Reinhardt can just hard shield there. You had their lamp out, their ultimates were used. The Reinhardt could have just shielded, and then you just getting so much damage with those left clicks. If he drops, right click, hit all of them. You had the rest of your team alive, also shooting into the shield. You had that in the bag. That was a great ultimate.
Yeah. Another way of looking at that fight would be to say, like, okay, both teams have grab, but they've got blade. Would you trade your grab for their grab and their blade? I would say probably yes.
Yeah, that was my thought. I wanted to grab the blade.
Yeah. So then even if you back out of that fight and keep it in neutral, you've now won in ultimate economy.
You've won the trade. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, like Jayne said, just a little bit of impatience. The Rhine goes down, and they snowball off that from the Shatter. Going for the classic wall pin. Oof.
Yeah. This was already going to be a difficult fight because you lost one very early on to the Widowmaker.
That Widow's popping. Oh, nice. These are some aimed right clicks. Where have these been? That was really good though, to prioritize that Widow, because like even if you don't kill her, like getting her down to half HP means she can't hold that position anymore.
Yep. Ooh, you could landed it on the Mercy too.
It's random aim. It happens sometimes.
It'll happen more often if you try and do it.
That's true.
That's our biggest note, I think.
180 damage right clicks. Yeah, right click is too high. Yeah, he's like, you landed it right on her head! Amazing!
Yeah.
Amazing!
Do you play Baptiste at all? I know you said you also play support.
I play most of the sports except Lucio.
Okay. So this is a concept similar to Baptiste healing grenades. If you consistently aim at center of mass of your heal targets as Baptiste, your grenades will often miss because your teammates will tend to move around during a game of Overwatch. There's a lot of movement involved. So the most consistent way to at least make sure you land the splash damage, luckily Baptiste healing has no fall off for the splash damage or splash healing, you want to aim at their feet. So it's at the very least, the edge of the hitbox will hit them. The same thing applies here for this right click for doing damage. You see how the Widow's, well, one, she's moving around by default, but two, she's predicting your shots as they're coming as well. So by just aiming a little bit lower here, instead of hitting that back wall, I mean, it's a hard angle, to be fair, to hit the ground there, but aiming them shorter so that they hit lower to the ground, the hitbox of the splash becomes closer to the Widow. It won't net the kill as easily as hitting her head on, obviously. You won't do as much damage, but you'll do more damage over time, more consistently.
Not strong enough.
Again, that was like a bit of a default play with bubbles. I'm going to keep talking about this until the end of time. But if we had bubbles at the time of that Mei wall, because you were already high charge going into that fight, imagine if we had said like, hey, we want to go aggressive this time, so I'm going to use bubbles aggressively. Then we Mei wall first as your Ryan's going to follow up the Mei wall. Then we bubble so we can get some aggressive swings off. And then you bubble yourself if you need even more follow-up instead of just bubbling to stay at the corner and get some ult charge. Or not ult charge, get some energy charge.
Okay, that sounds good.
You want to be aggressive as possible when you can be.
Okay.
And in that situation might have even meant you build a grav and you snowball off that, or you counter the Genji blade with gravs or something like that.
Okay.
Get in there.
Good catch on the fire strike.
Hopefully we'll have that bubble back up. Big grab. They counter grab and dragon.
Yeah, they win that trade.
They had more cards.
You don't always have to, especially at these elos. One of the simplest things that you can do is just like Reinhardt's at this elo are going to have really poor shield management, and if you just grab them in a situation where they have to hard shield, and then you with high energy left click and the rest of your team just shooting the shield breaks his shield, then he dies afterwards. You don't need to have like 4, 5, 6 man grabs or anything like that. If you just grab
enough
the
to get you
Reinhardt
an advantage.
and it gives you that time to break his shield, the shield advantage can lead to a Reinhardt elimination, and the Reinhardt elimination can lead to the winning team fight. So you don't need to kill everyone. I mean, it's nice. It shows up in plays of the game. It'll hit the top of Reddit, but it's not necessary. If you especially if you have 100 energy and you've seen bubbles come out, you can literally just grab the Reinhardt and then hold left click on his shield until it shatters, and it's done. So especially if you're playing with like an Echo. I mean, you are playing relatively low shield damage right now, but especially in higher shield break compositions, or if you see the Reinhardt shield is already poorly managing his shield HP, just abuse it. Done. That's all you need.
Best times to look for that kind of play are anytime there's a corner where Reinhardt typically wants to post up at a corner and burn his shield and then fall back to his team. If you can just prevent him from falling back around that corner through choke points or whatever. Kings Row has tons of examples of these. It's just an easy punish because, like I said, they're Reinhardt Zarya as well. They're playing the default double bubble Ryan, then bubble Zarya every time too. So we can punish that ourselves, just like I'm saying that you could be punished by doing it.
There is, I'm just going to tangent one quickly because I see something in chat talking about Reinhardt's pin. So it's true that his left and right side pins and boops differently. I don't remember the exact details, but Flats did the experimenting and did the testing. So if you want the details on the asymmetric parts of Reinhardt's charge, Flats will know.
I believe they did patch it slightly, but it's still a vacuum. It's not as outrageous as it was before, though.
I saw that happening on social media while I was on my break from Overwatch, so I didn't give a fuck about it, but I know that was tested. So, all right. Man, you are really into it today. Juicy right click.
It looks like the longer this game goes on, the more you're aiming these right clicks. It's like you can hear us in real time.
I think I'm one of those people who, like, the more I do things, the better I get at it.
Oh, so you're human.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Run from this Zarya. She's your May saved you.
Nice wall. All right, coming off a big Blizzard play, but they've got a blade.
Oh, I mean, like, oh goodness, like this is the perfect example of the sort of thing we're talking about. It's like, right. Right, look at this. This Genji is like, do. I just want some ultimate charge, and then you're like, have a right. Like, look at this. Look at his HP. Bam! He gets smoked by that, and then he gets
one shot from
and then he gets one shot, and I think it's the McCree who hits him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
it's
two
the
shots.
McCree plus the damage. But yeah, it's like, you know, you don't have to. The first one can just be like in the general area, but after you see somebody weak, it's like get him. You know, just keep right clicking in his direction as much as possible.
This is
keep
why.
Pressure him. Go ahead.
This is why poke damage is so relevant in Overwatch. People always ask, like, aren't they just like feeding ultimate charge to the enemy healers? But like situations like this happen all the time.
And they usually happen to me, and I die.
Let them up.
Oh, let's go back to normal speed.
Ooh, that's a pin.
Reinhardt's also move slower. Reinhardt's move slower when they have their shield up, so you can just walk at them and right-click melee as soon as you walk through their shield. Easy way to kill them.
This is kind of like a bit of a tank concept and might be a bit high level for this VOD. But I would have liked to see both you and Hart not standing on cart during this instance, but instead standing at one of the chokes. Yeah. So the idea of like stuffing, the general situation we want to be in a team fight in any composition is we want the enemy attention to be on our tanks so that our DPS and supports are unharmed. And we want our attention to be on their backline members so that they can't find any value. That's the best situation we can set up in almost any composition, where our backline is free, their backline is not. So one way of doing this is to have our backline play really far back and have our tanks play on the objective where the enemy tanks need to come to contest. But another way of doing this, and one that often is very relevant in these overtime sort of fights where we just need to push the payload a little bit more, they're going to be rushed to come touch, is to just go be in their way, be this roadblock at these choke points where if the enemy Reinhardt wants to go through you, one, he has to walk past you to get to the cart, and that's going to slow him down. He'll have to shield and walk through you, that kind of thing. And it'll open up his backline because now you are now in between the enemy Rein and his backline, and you can just mow them down with your hard charge. Same thing for your Reinhardt. If your Reinhardt, even if he's not able to stop the Reinhardt from getting out, he'll be able to punish anyone behind him trying to use the space the enemy Rein is taking. So again, a bit higher level, but even just playing like a slight off angle here, like if you were playing by these boxes on the left side, maybe not directly at the choke, or even like where your Hanzo's playing over there, then Rein would have to just walk right past you to go to the point. He wouldn't be able to be there to shield any of his backline members, and then you can just throw right clicks into their spawn, beam down anyone that comes out, and just deny them from getting into value. And then the rest of your team will eventually deal with the Reinhardt because he's not a real threat. He's just trying to touch the point.
the other thing that I wanted to point out is that like whether you're doing bubbles or whether you're shooting, this isn't an either or. You need to be doing both of them at the same time. So this was a pretty massive tunnel vision because you were like, I'm gonna bubble the Reinhardt. You know, this is kind of like a neutral sort of fight in the same way that you would approach it with like a first point attack or something when you know that there's going to be a Rein trade and that's what you're saving bubbles for, right? But you're very focused on this Reinhardt. You're like, I'm gonna bubble him. You know, I'm gonna bubble him. I'm gonna bubble this Reinhardt. And then Genji goes up and he blades and you're still like, I'm gonna bubble my Reinhardt.
We bubbled the Reinhardt.
You bubbled the Reinhardt. So this is one thing where it's like there's two things. You don't want to plan too far in advance for a situation that can change pretty dramatically. And then a couple times in this VOD, we've seen where you've stopped shooting to bubble. And this is something that is going to be, like, this is something that takes some time because when you're still learning, right, you want to focus all of your conscious attention on, like, one thing. It's like, okay, I am going to be focused on shooting, or I'm going to be focusing on bubbles. And when you first start learning, you start doing things to the exclusion of the other. But it is going to be best as early as possible in this learning process for you to be kind of like, you want to, when you are thinking about bubble or using a bubble, you don't want to be doing that at the expense of your uptime. I mean, you can bubble while left clicking. You can be doing both at the same time. So you don't want to be focused on doing one or the other to the exclusion of other. This is going to be something where you have to multitask bubbles and your lethality. So, and yeah, there's that. Just the multitasking as well as don't tunnel. Don't set a plan. It's like, I am going to do this too far in advance where things can change, because it's very, very common for people to just autopilot on that plan even after it stops making sense.
Yeah, and then get caught off guard by something they're not ready for. And this is just really about maximizing uptime during a fight. And you want to be doing as much damage, absorbing as much damage, all at the same time. So make sure you're not just focused on one of those things. Ooh.
Are you still going to win? You might still win this.
No.
Close.
It was very close. And really just like one or two faster decisions or adaptations throughout this entire map would have led to more fight wins, would have led to capping that point, would have maybe led to winning in overtime rounds. So all of these things that we're pointing out, they might like seem small, like all the right click stuff, all the bubble management stuff. Individually, they might seem small, but making these decisions more consistently and more consciously is going to lead to just better situations for both you and your team. And the more we can line those up, the more advantages we'll have, the more opportunities we'll have to win fights and set up plays we want to make instead of being rolled over by Genji blades or rolled over by a Doomfist kind of thing.
So there's the two different kinds. I wanted to just be a little bit more specific about the right clicking and the left clicking, because I think that this is something that you definitely. I mean, if there's like one thing that I want you to implement at all, is going to be like left clicking the single targets, but then also doing this right click left click. So there's also like the two different kinds of right clicking and left clicking, where because you only have like that 24 ammo, right? You can't use more than about like 8 ammunition if you are going to get that fourth right click in at the very end of your ammunition. So which is going to be like really quite low. You're only going to like be able to tap a couple times. So you can use that as a way to like line up your next one or just like get a little bit of a tickle. But if you are going to be going for, you know, the actual dueling of squishies, that's where you're going to be able to go right click, hold for like your left click a little bit longer. And at that point, you're only going to get the 3 left clicks over the duration of your ammunition. You're going to get one at the start, one at the middle, and one at preferably 1 HP, but you're going to have much longer durations of these left clicks. And you're going to be using that a lot more for trying to actually burst people down. Because again, squishy targets, you want the left click burst, the burn, and then the right click burst in order to actually finish targets off. So use the like right click, do right click, tap, 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 right click, tap, 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 right click, tap, 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 right click when you're just spamming. And I want you to be doing that at every point in time. Even when you're like firing over that King's Row wall and there's literally nothing to left click, just be like, just get into kind of the habit of always alternating between the two. And if you are dueling, sort of thing. That wasn't very efficient, but yeah. So just like recognize that you're either going for the 4 right clicks in a set of ammunition is going to be where you're like just using it for aiming or just like getting a little bit of tickle damage in. But then if you're doing the 3 right clicks, then you have much longer duration left clicks, and those will be primarily for bursting down squishies, general damage into a team fight, especially if you're on an angle or there's not a shield, sort of thing. But yeah, so I really think that there's just a few little changes like that, and you'll be able to dramatically increase how much damage you're dealing in a team fight.
Yeah, definitely a lot of these things I never thought about before or heard about. Well, because I don't usually play Zarya. I usually play support, but or that's how I started to learn on PS4, but now I'm trying to widen my horizons. So
well, that's what we're here for. So
yeah, so it's definitely a really good I got a lot of really good advice here, so
fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah.
Did you have any questions or things that didn't quite make sense that we could clarify?
I do have a question about the right-click melee. So is right-click melee in the better when you're just up close, or should I just be right-click, like left-clicking the whole? Usually, if I'm like up close.
So if you're up close, the right-click melee is going to be primarily to use as a finisher. So this is where you just need the burst damage to actually score the elimination. Because if you're right-clicking at like melee distance, the thing is that your right-clicks do damage you yourself. So it's a trade-off to be right-clicking this close, because you are going to take self-damage. So the main thing is that it's going to be what's finishing people off. Like it makes your time to kill that much lower.
Got it.
And especially if you surprise somebody or somebody's taken a little bit, it can actually be faster to go left-click. And oh wow, I messed that up. It can be faster to go left-click, right-click melee than it is to land the 2 right-clicks and start with that initial burst. So it can be really good for surprising people as well. But the trade-off being that right-click that you do with the melee does damage to you. And assuming you're going to be doing this primarily at high energies, because that's when your right-click is actually going to be doing the most damage, it's also going to be doing more damage to yourself. So right-click melee is specifically used as finishers, and it's used as finishers because it is such a massive combo burst. It's 125. So if you see a squishy and you're fighting them at close range, you don't have to track them through that last 125. You just like right-click melee, they're an animation cancel, and they pop. But you don't want to be doing that really outside of a finisher, because the right-click does have, or sorry, the melee does have the recovery. And if you're going to be using that recovery time, there's no recovery time between right-clicking and left-clicking. So you don't want to be like doing right-click melee in the middle of a clip or something like in the middle of a fight, unless it's like you're gonna finish 2 people off one after another sort of thing.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Tikatee, did you just peace out? Where did your cam go? Lou? What? Just die? Alright. I'm not gonna question it.
Well, tell Tikatee thank you.
I will certainly.
Hey, sorry. My cats were being menaces.
Your cats were. I was like, oh no, he's left me. But yeah, so.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.